Welcome to this space, where we break down the raw soccer realities that everyone else prefers to keep quiet about. There is an old, wise saying warning us that absolutely nothing is ever quite what it seems. And right now, in the global soccer universe, those words are ringing truer than ever before. For nearly 2 decades, we lived under the spell of an unbreakable narrative. Leading up to the 2026 World Cup, Lionel Messi was far more than just a soccer player. He was a modern deity, a pure icon of athletic perfection beloved by hundreds of millions across every single corner of the globe. His public image soared high above even Cristiano Ronaldo, transforming him into arguably the most influential celebrity of our modern era. His glorious World Cup win in Qatar, and subsequent move to the United States, the massive country hosting most of the next tournament, seemed like the ultimate fairy tale ending to an absolute dream of a career. Over in Major League Soccer, they handed him the crown, set him up as their ultimate poster boy, and wrapped him in a shield of complete invincibility that very few athletes have ever known. Behind that curtain of endless applause and massive marketing, deep structural cracks finally started to show. Just like with any massive superstar, Messi always had his critics, but something has shifted quite drastically of late. Because of what so many now see as a series of systematic favors handed down by FIFA to the Argentina national team, and specifically to their legendary captain, the superstar has wound up becoming one of the most heavily scrutinized and, frankly, disliked players on the entire international stage. We are not talking about some simple run of bad luck, or a smear campaign cooked up in the dark, which is how his diehard defenders try to explain it all away. What we are actually seeing is the sheer weight of his own actions, because at the end of the day, concrete facts speak so much louder than any polished public relations spin. This is precisely where we start uncovering the darker layers of this entire situation. Over the years, critics have often pointed to Messi as a manipulative, detached player who can be flat-out rude to his loyal supporters and his fellow professional athletes alike. That old story of extreme humility, of the quiet kid who just wanted to play soccer, seemed to fall apart the exact moment it became obvious how much power those behind-the-scenes puppet masters actually hold. It was an open secret, but today the raw evidence is completely undeniable. The intense political and athletic drama surrounding him is deep, laying bare the collapse of an idol who now only seems to find a safe haven back home in Argentina and in very select, isolated places where they still excuse his behavior both on and off the pitch. That nice guy image, pushed relentlessly by media outlets that grew rich alongside his massive success, has completely shattered. Now, to a huge portion of the soccer world, Messi is no longer the heroic protagonist, he has slowly become the story's main villain. How is it even possible to see a complete 180-degree turn in just one single month? It is a sociological shift that is both deeply fascinating and highly alarming. Even over in Spain, the very country that gave him everything, and where he won every trophy imaginable, that universal respect has faded away. Fans who once worshipped him are showing real signs of exhaustion and a total lack of patience. And make no mistake, this backlash is not skin deep. It has incredibly deep roots, tangled up with complex social dynamics and sensitive cultural divisions right inside Argentina itself. There is a segment of the wealthy Buenos Aires elite that, according to multiple studies, has pushed an attitude of superiority, alienating everyday Argentinians from the rest of the world. This is a deliberate internal strategy that sadly makes it easier to drain the country's wealth, while the public remains completely blinded by sports glory. We are here to look closely at those highly uncomfortable details, to expose the grand myth that shielded Messi, and reveal how global admiration slowly turned into widespread, bitter resentment. Let us talk about how his defenders rationalize failure. Whenever a valid critique is made, their instant reaction is to call it a targeted smear campaign. They excuse his poor sportsmanship after a loss or his declining performance on the pitch, constantly claiming that the entire world is out to get him. For years, we were fed this constant idea that Messi was an alien, a creature from another planet, a player who took hard hits and just kept going without a single complaint, as if absolutely nothing could ever break his focus. Pundits and fans alike constantly praised that supposed mental toughness. He was the humble star, a devoted family man who never went out partying, the ultimate contrast to Cristiano Ronaldo, a player whom the media always branded as the arrogant, self-centered villain of the sport. But now the script has flipped, the roles are completely reversed, and reality is finally catching up with those who chose to look the other way. Public relations experts suggest that the global perception of Messi really started to fall apart after several very specific, highly visible incidents. Think back to that crucial match and the brutal foul committed against that Algerian player. Referees somehow brushed it off, claiming there was no intent. But the official rulebook is pretty black and white on this. A tackle from behind with no play on the ball is a red card worldwide. Public opinion research shows us that there are exactly 3 stages when a fan base turns from love to pure hatred. Stage 1, a genuine shift in opinion. It starts with a real-life incident that makes fans question a player's actual character. Then Stage 2 kicks in, context-free clips go viral, instantly shining a spotlight on blatant favoritism. Headlines scream they let Messi off, while other players get hit with 3-match suspensions, making it a daily occurrence. This feeds a toxic narrative that reaches even casual observers. Finally, Stage 3 locks it in. The narrative is set. You do not even need new proof anymore because the heavy stigma has already stuck. But here is the thing in this case. The receipts are everywhere. If Messi had actually faced the harsh suspensions he deserved, those historic goal records and final appearances simply would not exist. His legendary path was paved by highly suspicious refereeing calls against teams like Austria, Cape Verde, or even Egypt. It is foolish to believe that this growing backlash is just a media invention. The footage from the last World Cup is absolute proof. This is not just about soccer anymore, it is about the arrogance of an elite group dominating the national team. Now we are entering some really thorny territory, but we have to talk about Argentina's national identity. International observers constantly wonder why this specific roster completely lacks any real representation of the region's rich mixed race or Afro-descendant diversity. The Argentine squad has taken great care, perhaps unconsciously, or maybe entirely by design, to project an overwhelmingly white image featuring European surnames that point directly back to Italy, Spain, or England. This squad serves as a patriotic symbol, fueling a nationalism that borders on dangerous. It is no coincidence that stadium stands are filled with Falklands banners and intense war rhetoric from 1982. Local politicians use this intense sense of belonging to keep the public in a state of trance, successfully burying the country's actual economic crisis deep in the background. If you are here, it is because you want the actual truth behind the game. Hit subscribe now, because we will keep digging into these controversial global stories that nobody else touches. From Mexico, Colombia, or anywhere in Latin America, drop your thoughts below. Is the global dislike for Argentina manufactured by the outside media, or is it a direct result of their own arrogance and classism? Many fans believe that if they had handled their losses with some basic humility, the world would view them in a much different light. For Messi, that carefully crafted image of a humble, innocent kid has completely shattered. This blatant backroom influence has permanently stained a sport that claims to be completely clean. Rumor has it that even high-profile political figures stepped in to make sure no major sanctions would ever touch the Argentine superstar, while other players faced heavy bans for doing the same thing. Messi felt completely untouchable because the entire system protected him. They had to preserve the product to secure the massive revenue of those final matches. On the pitch, Argentina was not even a shadow of their former dominant selves. To make that dream final a reality, many fans believe the delicate scales of sporting justice were heavily and deliberately tilted in their favor. From the initial group draws all the way to the knockout brackets, their paths seemed perfectly tailored to avoid powerhouse teams like France, Morocco, or Germany during the early stages of the tournament. But putting aside external help, let us look at the player's behavior. Is he really a model for fair play? The short answer is no. Just remember that shocking incident with Mikel Merino, whom he blasted directly in the head from point-blank range during extra time. While his opponent lay completely stunned on the grass, Messi did not show even a single shred of concern. Instead, he mocked him, showing a cold indifference that deeply offended the Spanish fans. Spain, the very country that welcomed him as a sick young child, funded the medical treatment he desperately needed, and eventually helped make him a multi-millionaire, received nothing but absolute contempt toward one of their own national stars, a move that quickly sparked heavy outrage all across Mexico and our beloved Colombia. That is what you call being completely ungrateful. Not even his historic gratitude to Barcelona could contain his massive, growing ego. Even die-hard supporters of the Catalan club have slowly started pulling him off his pedestal. While some will always view him as the greatest of all time, others now see him as a toxic figure who shows no respect for other playing styles or international colleagues. Another clear example was the disrespect shown to Cape Verde goalkeeper Bocinha when he refused the post-match handshake in a shocking display of sheer, inexplicable arrogance. The waves of heavy criticism focus on these hard, undeniable facts. Taking quick free kicks before the wall is set, constant dirty tricks on the pitch, and relentless pressure on referees that somehow never results in a yellow card for him. At the end of that game, his embrace of Bocinha felt hollow and forced, nothing more than a cheap public relations stunt after being completely exposed to the entire world. That Cape Verde goalkeeper, with his pure humility and incredible talent at 40 years old, touched the world deeply, far more than the arrogant declarations of Messi, who, after beating England, boasted that they were simply the best and did not care who it hurt. Those words only fueled the fire of growing global rejection against him. Where did his famous humility actually go? It seems his path was carefully paved, because teams like Switzerland or Egypt made them tremble, and they only survived thanks to massive external help pushing them forward. Messi turned into that classic spoiled brat who ends up completely ruined because absolutely nobody has the courage to tell him no. When you tell a man he is a god, he eventually believes it, but the moment he faces the reality of his own athletic mortality, he completely loses his mind. We have been analyzing the fallout of that World Cup. Argentina as a nation remains stuck in a victory narrative that the rest of the world absolutely detests. Lionel Scaloni said it quite clearly: soccer was only there so people could forget the ugly parts of life for a couple of days. That statement is a direct confession of how they use sports as an opiate for the masses, and the brainwashing in parts of Buenos Aires runs incredibly deep. They identify with an exclusive success model that ignores the mixed-race majority of the continent. It is a social phenomenon where deep-seated racism and xenophobia are disguised as soccer passion. By not having any dark-skinned or black players on the team, they feed this ugly sense of racial superiority among some of their fans, who argue that there simply are no other cultures in Argentina. This completely denies the indigenous and mulatto roots of their own land, and that is the dark truth here. They worship Messi because he is the reflection of everything they want: to be white, successful, and superior. Even the mixed-race fans who adore him do so out of a desperate need for social approval from that dominant elite. It is a domino effect of cultural alienation. Denying their crushing defeat against Spain despite being thoroughly outplayed in every single area of the pitch is the absolute textbook example of this social pathology. Meanwhile, Messi, the protected figure, the ultimate god of the Argentines, has become an international pariah for representing this deeply toxic and rotten ideology. This is not about envying his lavish lifestyle, it is a rejection of his arrogance and complete lack of sportsmanship. I ask you, my friend listening to this, what is your honest perception today? Do you believe the myth surrounding Messi was just a media creation by the big European newspapers that has now spiraled completely out of control? Today, his persona is highly detestable to a huge portion of the public, not because of his technical skills, which nobody would ever dispute, but because of the favoritism shown by FIFA and referees, who constantly made him feel like he was entirely above the law. That is the new idol who continues to brainwash people in his home country, but outside their borders, he simply does not fool anyone anymore. If you found this deep analysis interesting, I invite you once again to subscribe to our channel. Your support with a simple like helps us continue bringing you these international investigations. It is an absolute pleasure to analyze the beautiful game with you from a critical, completely honest perspective. We will talk again in the next investigation. Goodbye.